For as long as jazz has existed, the human voice has chased the horn. Vocalists have always looked for ways to capture the distinct tone, driving cadence, and physical power of brass and woodwind instruments. The most familiar result of this pursuit is scat singing. Legends like Louis Armstrong and Ella Fitzgerald popularized this approach, relying on real-time, wordless improvisation to invent melodies on the spot. But a much more rigid discipline operates outside of spontaneous improvisation. It is called vocalese, the exacting process of retrofitting settled, meaningful lyrics onto a pre-existing recorded instrumental solo. Confounding the two ignores the severe literary constraints of the form. A scat singer has the freedom to invent. A vocalese performer is strictly bound to an established architectural blueprint. The foundation of vocalese relies on a master text. It requires a fixed recording captured on wax, which a lyricist then painstakingly converts into permanent text. The complex bebop lines of musicians like Charlie Parker serve as the primary case study for this transcription challenge. When Parker played, he wasn't considering where a vocalist might need to take a breath. The uncompromising rule of vocalese is that every rapid run, every slide, and every ghost note he committed to tape must be mapped to a specific syllable. This process functions as an audio literary archive. The lyricist studies the master recording endlessly, looking for the phrasing required to cement a fleeting, improvised moment into written history. The vocalist operates on a high wire of musical transcription, where every syllable is a direct consequence of the notes already on the tape. To understand the difficulty of this transcription, we have to look at mechanical advantage. Brass and woodwind players construct their fluid lines using valves and keys, bypassing the human need for constant, measured breath. When a vocalist attempts to sing a solo, originally played by someone like Lester Young, they hit a biological wall. The singer lacks these mechanical bypasses, forcing the vocal cords and lungs to do the work of precision hardware. Then comes the mathematical problem of tempo. Bebop solos routinely hit 250 beats per minute. Looking at this waveform, the articulation barrier becomes clear. A singer must distinctly articulate 10 to 12 separate words every single second. Surviving this syllabic density requires a biological adaptation known as athletic phonetics. The mouth, tongue, and diaphragm must move with the practiced efficiency of a sprinter. This is simultaneously a feat of memory and extreme physical endurance, as the performer retrieves hundreds of rapidly advancing syllables in real time. The horn's mechanical freedom becomes the vocalist's physiological prison, making the genre an extreme physical sport. Velocity is secondary to lyrical meaning. Technical agility must always serve a coherent meridance to be effective within the genre. The lyricist carries the burden of emotional translation. They must decode an abstract musical gesture and assign it an exact narrative word. A deliberately flattened blue note might translate to a sigh or the word longing. A frantic upward scale might represent the silhouette of a city skyline. The master of this translation was Jon Hendricks. Recognized as the poet laureate of the genre, Hendricks turned abstract instrumental solos into coherent, deeply human stories. He built on the foundation laid by early pioneers like King Pleasure, who originally proved these intricate vocal mappings were possible to perform. Eddie Jefferson joined him in this work, demonstrating that the scattered brilliance of live solos could be wrangled into permanent vocal masterpieces. Their work ultimately established that technical agility is only truly effective when anchored by a coherent, deeply human narrative. Having conquered the single-line solo, the genre escalated. The next major evolutionary leap expanded the strict constraint from replicating a single horn to replacing an entire big band. The Manhattan Transfer reached the pinnacle of this evolution with their 1985 album, Vocalese. Instead of one voice chasing one solo, they used 4 distinct vocal parts to entirely replace the function of saxophone sections and brass shout choruses. When tackling heavy big band arrangements composed by artists like Ray Charles, the quartet reverse-engineered the entire chart specifically for 4 human voices. Specific singers were assigned to mimic the precise mechanical roles of different brass instruments, locking in together to drive the rhythm forward. This development moved vocalese from a solitary feat of individual endurance into a synchronized architectural achievement. Pulling off this orchestral illusion demands strict group intonation. Every voice must lock in perfectly to create the combined harmonic resonance of a brass section. This frequency chart demonstrates the mathematical tolerance at play. If a single singer drifts a fraction of a cent sharp or flat, the structural integrity fails. Without that absolute pitch alignment, the unified horn timbre shatters instantly, exposing the performers as four separate vocalists rather than a unified section. Maintaining the illusion of a jazz ensemble requires the microtonal rigor of a classical chamber group. Because of these physiological, literary, and mathematical demands, vocalese stands as the ultimate technical challenge in jazz vocals. At its core, the discipline is about finding the exact right syllable to fill the silence between a horn player's frantic notes. It demands the precision of a classical chamber group paired with the soul of a street corner poet. By putting exact words to improvised notes, the singer ensures the ephemeral magic of a live solo is etched permanently into literature. It is the moment where the silence between the notes is finally filled with the human story. This was brought to you by Notes and Silences. Thank you for listening.